Hollyweird is filled with narcissists, and here is why. Guys, I have been doing a deep dive of research into narcissism recently for a whole bunch of reasons that I'm not going to get into in this video. But what I do want to say is that it has highlighted to me how I feel like this is something that is so much more common and prevalent than we recognize that it is. And it's actually extremely important for us to understand exactly what this is. Now, disclaimer, I am not a psychologist. I am not a professional. I am not qualified as per the world standards of qualification to, diagnose anybody as a narcissist. But what I will say is this is my perspective and my opinion, which I have the right to give. Also, I will say that there are two different ways that people classify, narcissism. You have I think it's called NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder, which is an actual diagnosis that people can get as calling them saying that they have that disorder. But then you have narcissism, which is just like a kind of like a describing word, a way that you can describe somebody's behavior based on certain characteristics about them, kind of like how you could say that somebody is a liar, that kind of thing. So I'm coming at it more from that approach than trying to give a expert opinion, although my opinion is formed on experts' opinions who are actually qualified and just their work, their research and stuff like that. So one thing that really stuck out to me about narcissists and I'm going to be talking about narcissism a lot, by the way, guys, because I think it's playing a role in a lot of the situations that we're dealing with. And we're just going to jump into that so much more. So definitely stay tuned for all that. But one thing I will say is that narcissists have one-way relationships, right? This is based on the understanding that I have from the research that I've done. They have one-way relationships, i.e. they're in it for themselves. They're not planning on actually giving you anything, at least never from a place of actually caring about you, and if they are doing things for you, it's because of the greater thing that they want to receive themselves, and I'm going to talk more about what a narcissist actually is, and I'm actually going to do a whole breakdown on my other channel called Kings and Queens of the demonic makeup of a narcissist, so you guys can check that video out if you're interested. And I'm going to get into depth as to how I feel this actually works inside somebody, like spiritually. But I think for narcissists, one thing that they have to do is they basically have to create a facade, right, of something that people see them as, who isn't their true self, right? Because what I've seen, all the experts that I've seen say is that a narcissist actually hates themselves, actually has very low self-esteem, but they kind of portray the exact opposite, right, in order to get the adoration and validation from people, which kind of fuels that whole the fake reality, as well as helping them to believe in the fake reality, because they'd kind of rather believe in the fake reality that is who they are than address the internal issues that they've got going on. And then they become so much into that fake reality that they just live in that fake reality, and so much that what's really going on is never really being addressed. Is just at the bottom of nowhere as far as they're concerned. They pretty much become their fake reality, but in order to maintain that, they have to fuel it, because otherwise it's going to go away. In the same way that we all know that you can fake anything as much as you want. When you're by yourself and you're alone and it's quiet, you know what you think, you know what you do, like you can't hide from yourself, right? I think that's one of the hardest things about life, is the fact that you can't hide from yourself, right? You can hide from others, you can't hide from yourself. And so for them, it's very important for them to create this. And I'm saying all of this for a reason. So just run with me, guys. Just run with me. Run with your girl, okay? And so with narcissists and Hollyweird, right? I feel like, I talked in one of my videos about image versus character, right? And it's so funny because this kind of feels like a bit of a continuation almost about that. And in that video, you guys should check it out, because I think it's actually a really good video. Not to toot my own horn, but I think it was a really good video. In there, I talk about how in society today, we've kind of been groomed to care more about how people look than about their actual character. And how I feel like it's really starting to shoot us in the foot, because now people, because they present well, maybe on their Instagram, maybe in person, maybe in the way that they act, that we are like overlooking serious character flaws that are detrimental for either one or multiple groups of people, and it's destructive, right? And I think this is exactly what narcissists capitalize off of, and this is exactly what Hollyweird capitalizes off of, right? You have people who are obsessed, you know, with creating a certain image, a certain character, that they are living up to it, right? Rather than, you know, doing the actual work. And I think this is why you have a lot of situations where you've got, you know, these sick and twisted, you know, rapists and pedophiles and people that we talk about. I think a lot of these people are actually narcissists, because they part of them sees themselves, because a narcissist tends to see themselves as superior to everybody else, like a genuine sense of superiority. So those around you are just a means to an end. We already see that in a very basic level in terms of business, as far as the fact that we've been discussing on here that a lot of people are just being seen as products in the entertainment industry, and not actually people. They're being dealt with as though they are just products, as though they are just a means for somebody else to make money, just a pawn in somebody else's game, right? But even deeper than that, I think a lot of these people who are doing these things, either to children or to adults, you know, inappropriate behavior, there's a sense of entitlement. You know, I think there's a sense of them kind of getting a hit almost off of lowering people below them, if that makes sense. And I think because one thing that I personally see is I kind of liken narcissistic behavior and the way that they maintain their narcissism with like an addict. And a lot of the experts say stuff like that as well, because they kind of have to, it's something that they're almost becoming addicted to. They're becoming addicted to being to this reality that they've created for themselves. And the more they're becoming addicted to it, the more they want, you know, out of it. And I think that's where we see a lot of the sick and twisted things that people do in this world today. It's coming from that narcissistic place of like wanting to like have and it's the same thing, like, you know, like how when with drug addicts and people like that, like they have to continue increasing, you know, the dosage or the strength of whatever it is they're taking, because it's not having the same hit effect as it used to have. I think that's what we see with a lot of narcissists, where as they're getting things, it's not strong enough. You know, an example I could give you of what I mean by that is you have Hugh Hefner, right? We talked about Hugh in a separate video, and I talked about how you know, he had, after there was, I think there was like a, you have to check out the video anyway, I can't remember exactly what the situation was, but pretty much he's the one who was the guy from Playboy, you know. He at a certain point basically had gotten like bored of women, because I guess he'd had so many beautiful women that now he apparently he was also into, like, you know, doing sexual things with animals. And people wonder, how do you get there? Well, probably because the hit of having all the women he could ever have and he could ever want, and his magazine being so-called like the one that all the men wanted, and he has all these women and they all live in his mansion and whatever. Eventually that wore off. Eventually that wasn't enough to give him that narcissistic hit. Like, why would he want to be in that situation anyway? It's very narcissistic if you think about it. Have somewhere where it's all about you and you're the one man and you walk around in your robe and there's all these women. Like, I don't understand why you'd want that. To want that, you have to be somebody who's very obsessed with yourself. And that's the thing about narcissists. They're extremely selfish. They're very selfish. That's the only person they're thinking about is themselves, right? And so him doing that, like, it's like him moving on to the dogs, to meet the dogs, I think it was the dog that was mentioned, is like a stage of him, it's like the hit wasn't good enough anymore for him. He had to go further. And I think this is the behavior we see in Hollyweird. I think this is why things just get weirder and weirder and weirder. It's never enough, because you've got a whole bunch of narcissistic people, right, who are selfish, who are trying to hold up to something that isn't real. Because the thing about money, power, and fame is this, right? People say fake it till you make it. And I kind of somewhat agree with that notion, in the sense that I definitely believe you should present yourself as what you want to achieve, i.e., if you want to be, I don't know, a doctor, it's probably good for you to be presenting yourself as somebody who cares about health, who cares about looking after people, who cares, who's knowledgeable in the sciences. You should start doing stuff like that. I'm not talking about being fake. I'm not talking about writing a fake doctorate on in your like Instagram bio, putting doctor and starting to like prescribe medication without, you know, the the necessary qualifications. I'm not saying that. But what I think a lot of people are doing in Hollyweird is that they do have the money, power, and fame, and it gets to make them look like they have something they really don't have. So many of them are not as happy as they make it out. They make it seem, but they want that because they want the adoration. They want what comes with the money. You're seeing this in the red pill community a lot at the moment, where a lot of guys, you know, are saying how it's sad about how it's annoying that they have to have all this money to attract the women. And then you've got the gold digger business deal, which I talked about as well on here. And it's like people are doing things to create a reaction out of others to give them what they want, but it's actually not even about the A, it's not about the other person, and B, they're not getting those things because of who they truly are. They're getting things because of the like, what do you call it, the facade, you know, the fake image lifestyle, whatever that they're putting forward, you know what I mean? And so that's why I really feel like narcissism is actually really prevalent in Hollyweird. I think so many of these directors, producers, people, because a lot of narcissists, they have a real sense of like entitlement, I think, as well, because of the superiority. Like they get to have who they want, they get to have what they want, they get to do whatever they want to whoever. Maybe because they're powerful, maybe because they've got money and all this stuff. And you can kind of see the part where people kind of start to lose their minds and become obsessed with themselves the more powerful they become. And again, it's because they're literally drunk off of their own matrix. They're drunk off of their own, you know, fuel sources. And it's so interesting when you hear the experts talking about narcissism, because they talk about how they need a source, they need actual sources, like I'm talking with a British accent, so it's like when I'm saying source, I mean like SOURCE. So like, you know, things to fuel them, and those things have to be people, right? But those people aren't getting anything out of it because the narcissist doesn't care enough to give anything back to those people, which is why they just use and discard. One of the things that came up when I was looking into narcissism, somebody was saying that, you know, when you have a narcissistic person in a relationship, right, they might have, one of the reasons why they might have side chicks or side dudes or whatever is because they need somebody who can give them the fuel they need, you know, the adoration, the validation, and all that stuff, when the primary source maybe isn't doing it. Maybe their girlfriend isn't doing it because the girlfriend thinks this is a real relationship with a real person who actually cares about them, and so is wondering why they're not getting back what they deserve. And so when the narcissist is in that situation, rather than doing that because they don't actually care about the person, they'll just, you know, maybe ghost that person for a bit, be horrible, and then go and find a side chick or a side dude to, you know, give them that same hit. Another thing that just came into my mind as I was thinking about this, about narcissists, oh my gosh, what was it? Oh yes, it was the fact that they are more than happy to lie and to force on people, to try and force people into their like matrix, into their fake world, into their fake reality. They will force you. That's why you can't even deal with them. That's why I think a lot of people, when they go through stuff with narcissistic individuals, and I'm sure this happens in Hollyweird, where people say, oh, that didn't happen. That is a classic thing for somebody, and they'll do something to you, right? You can pull them up on it and they'll tell you, even though they did it to you, that didn't happen. And those types of things are just some deep, high level mind games that are being played, if you ask me. That's scary, you know, but it's very smart if you think about it, because it means that if you eventually, for a lot of people, especially if you're an empath, because, you know, I'm going to talk about that in a second, a lot of people, if you're not sure of yourself, if you yourself have low self-esteem or whatever, you will be convinced. And a lot of narcissists convince people of things that aren't true, you know. And I think that's how they get away with a lot of stuff, is because they just are so good at maintaining their fake reality, you know, that no one that people then start to believe things that aren't true. And if you hear what the experts say, they talk about all of these different tactics that narcissists use in order to kind of make sure that people stay believing these fake realities, and that they do this stuff intentionally. And I was just about to mention about what was I saying about empaths, because one thing that narcissists love is people who are empathetic. And this is important in terms of Hollyweird, I feel, because a lot of the people that we talk about on this channel are very good-hearted people, if you ask me. This is my personal opinion, my personal analysis. And so they're like the perfect feed for a narcissistic person, because a narcissistic person just wants to take advantage of you. And so if they have somebody who's empathetic and who cares and who's likely to, you know, do whatever they can for somebody else, who's likely to be quick to take on, you know, guilt or responsibility for something if they're being accused of doing something, that's the perfect person for them to have, you know, around them, because then they can just exploit them. And I think this is what we see with the likes of people like, you know, the Britney Spearses and people like that, which I'm going to do a whole video about Britney Spears' family, narcissistic family, and breaking that down and how I feel like that works, you know, because you know, it makes you have somebody like who has something to give, right? And a lot of narcissistic relationships, again, from what I've seen, or a lot of narcissists will prey on people that deep down they're probably quite jealous of. Like deep down, maybe they're jealous of the talent they have. Maybe they're jealous of the fact that they are the ones, like say in terms of Hollyweird, you might be jealous that, you know, of somebody's youth. You might be jealous that they actually have a talent that you can't, so that they can actually be the talent as opposed to having to be the talent manager, you know, stuff like that. You know, I think really affects why, you know, these narcissistic individuals choose these people, because it's like, my hate for you, my jealousy of you is also fueling that's internal, that I'm not going to address, is deep down there, is also why I'm happy to use you and why I want to see myself above you, because it's like, even I'm above you. You might sing, you might this, you might that, but I'm above you. You need me, you need that. And I think this is why so much of the entertainment industry is really clinging on to themselves as gatekeepers. They're really clinging on to making sure that basically, unless you go through certain people and through certain companies and do certain things, they're not really trying to let you succeed, because it's a narcissistic thing. Like when I think about this, I think to myself, like, I'm of the school of thought of like, let's all win. I want everybody to win. I want us all to do extremely well. Like if I was going to have a record label, and somebody else and you wanted to have a record label, to me, I don't see that as competition, because I'm like, God probably gave you a whole revelation, a whole purpose in your record label that's going to be different for a different group of artists or whatever, and mine's going to be my thing, and maybe we'll even collaborate, maybe whatever, you know what I mean? I don't look at things like that. But then that's my perspective. If you're a narcissistic person and you want to maintain control, you want to maintain your power, you want to maintain all the things that are necessary in order to create this facade, to create this fake reality, then you can't really afford to have competition, because that might challenge how people see you. That might challenge people thinking of you as so superior, you know, because for a narcissist, what people think matters a lot. So to me, somebody else's record label being better than mine, I'm like, good for you, that sounds amazing, like, do your thing, you keep shining over there. To a narcissist, it's like a challenge on their fake reality. Like, now you're making, like, now I'm not where I'm supposed to be, now I'm not getting the fuel that I need, now I'm not getting the hit that I need, because people are now running over there to this person, you know, acknowledging them, and or people are not looking at me as I'm the best, and that starts to get to them, and then they start to act like an addict looking for who their next victim is, and you know, the cycle goes on. So I don't know, I just thought this was an interesting theory to just throw out there to the peoples, especially kind of also an intro, because I'm going to be talking about narcissism a lot more on this channel and just in general, because I really feel like there are so many more narcissistic people in the world than we realize. Because if you think about the fact that it comes down to people hating themselves on the inside, I really think people are faking how they feel about themselves so much more than than most of society realizes. I think people really buy that all these Instagram models and all these people, all these influencers, all these celebrities are just as happy as they look. I think a lot of them, this is why you find, again, a lot of rich people will say that it didn't bring them happiness, because they chased something that they thought was, with all the optics of everything that people could see, was going to be meaningful, and it still wasn't, you know. And that's why for me, as a woman of faith, and that's probably why I feel the way that I do, because I'm like, for me, I already feel whole on the inside. There's nothing to hide for me, because, you know, I go there with God. We talk about the hard things. You know, I've had to go on the journey of learning to love myself, and like, for who I am, improving myself as well along the way. And so there's nothing, I don't feel like I'm competing with anybody, because I'm learning to be sure of who I am, you know. But I think for other people, you know, when you don't do those kinds of things, you know, you have to just keep up appearances, not just for others but for yourself. And I think we vastly underestimate how much that's happening in the world. So yeah, anyways, I'm going to be talking more about that. You guys let me know what you think about that. If you made it this far through the video, let me know in the comment section if you personally feel like you've ever come across a narcissistic person, your thoughts on narcissism. Feel free to share any horror stories if you would like to, because I'll be very fascinated. I highly recommend you guys look into this stuff, because I know a lot of people are suffering in the world today, and a lot of people are suffering at the hands of narcissists, because what I've discovered is that the victims of narcissists always find themselves feeling drained, depressed, and just in a horrible state, because they have somebody or people in their life that are just take. And so you actually understanding this might actually even bring you relief in your life, it bring you healing, bring you understanding. It might help you to realize that you're not crazy with certain things that maybe you've dealt with. So yeah, if you feel free to share your horror stories in the comment section down below. Also, I do have my email in my description box. If anybody ever wants any prayer, I did ask this the other day, feel free to like hit your girl up if you want me to pray, or if you just want to talk about something it's a bit more personal. I'm a bit rubbish with social media and stuff sometimes, but when I can tell, when I try to be able to be available, you know, when people have things that are like important that they need to talk about, or they're going through stuff. So definitely by email is the best way, I would say, in terms of like serious stuff like that, like if you want to talk about something serious or anything like that. Anyways, other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching. God bless you all, and I'll see you in my next one.